Hey everyone, and welcome to Just Finished Coding. Today I'll go over how you can create a simple two-player tic-tac-toe game. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. First, you need a blank project, and the first thing that I'll do is delete the cat sprite. Now we'll need a square, and then we can duplicate this to create the rest of the board. So choose the option to draw your own sprite and then rename this to be square. In the canvas, choose the rectangle tool and then change the fill color to white while keeping the outline at 4. This will give it a nice border. Now hold the shift key to maintain the aspect ratio of the square. Make sure that it's centered, and then you'd have to increase the size to 71 by 71. To do this, just drag the corner while holding the Alt key, and this will increase the size uniformly. Once you've got the shape, rename this costume to E, standing for empty. Duplicate this once, renaming it X. Now you can add a text box inside the square of a bright red color. The size here doesn't matter too much, just make sure that it's somewhat centered and then duplicate it again. The last costume can be called O, and here just replace the X with a dark blue colored O. Center this approximately, and that's it. Head back to the code tab, and to start off, I'd recommend creating our variables and lists. We'll need two lists, both for all sprites. The first is called board and the second is called wins. The board list will store the state of the board at a given point in time in terms of where the X's and O's are placed. On the other hand, the wins list will store the ways in which either player can win the game. I'll explain these more in depth when we program their implementation. Alright, let's begin coding. Grab a when green flag is clicked block. To start off, we will use two different custom blocks to set up the game. I call the first one create clones, making sure to run without screen refresh. The second one can be called setup lists. Again, make sure to run without screen refresh. The create clones block will be responsible for creating the grid of squares that make up the board. On the other hand, the setup lists block will help us initialize the lists that we just created. We'll start with the create clones function, but to make sure that the game can actually work, we'll need a few variables. First, a turn variable to oscillate between the turns of the two players. Next, a win variable to represent that the game has been completed. Finally, a number variable to function as an ID for each square. Make sure that you set this variable for this sprite only. Since the X player will go first, set the turn to X and win to blank. When a player wins the game, we'll change this variable, but for now let it be. Since the board will be empty at the start, switch the costume to E. Remember that we need 9 squares to be arranged in the form of a grid. So what we'll do is start from the top left and then clone the sprite 3 times for each row. While we're creating the clones itself, we'll modify the number variable so that the clones are arranged in order from 1 to 9, with each clone having a unique ID. Let's code this into existence. Set Y to 70, then set number to 1. Since we want the clones in a grid-like pattern, we can use a nested loop format. For each row, set X to -70 so that the square goes to the left. We repeat this 3 times again, as that is the number of columns, and each time we create a clone. Since each clone must have a unique number, we increment the variable by 1. To position the next clone, change X by 70 inside the inner loop and then change Y by -70 in the outer loop. We're doing -70 because we're starting from the top and we're going down. Oh, and one last thing. The sprite itself will serve no purpose after this, so add a show at the beginning of the script and a hide at the end of the script. This way, the clones will be visible while the sprite itself will be hidden. Great. Now we use the implementation of this function when the green flag is clicked. With this done, let's now work on setting up the board and the wins list. Like I mentioned before, the board will store the state of the game at a given instant of time. So if the game was something like this, then the board will store its position in the following manner. Notice that the index numbers in the board list matches with the number variable of each square. This is how we'll understand if anyone has won the game. At the start of the game, the board will be empty. So delete all of the items at the start and then add 9 empty elements to this list. As the game goes on, we'll modify the items, but at the start this should make sense. The wins list, on the other hand, will contain all the ways in which a player can win the game. If you take a look at the tic-tac-toe board, a person could win this game by capturing any of these 3 squares horizontally. If you look at the numbers of the set squares, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, 8, 9. In addition, this can also be done vertically. That would be 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8 and 3, 6, 9. Lastly, players can also win by capturing the diagonals, which is 1, 5, 9 and 3, 5, 7. These are the items that the wins list will store. Initially, delete the existing items and then add them one after another. It's only 8 of them, so you should be able to do this pretty quickly. Alright, now the moment of truth. Hit the green flag and wow, you should get your squares all perfectly aligned like this. This looks so awesome. Now we have to program the part where the square changes its costume when it is clicked. Believe it or not, this is actually really easy. Move on to some free space and grab a when sprite is clicked block. Remember, the win variable keeps track of whether a player has won the game, so we ensure that the game is still ongoing first. Next, we have to switch the costume depending on who played the move. Lucky for us, this is already stored within the turn variable. We also have to update that particular item in the boards list, so replace item number of board with turn. But hang on a minute, we have missed something here. One additional check that we must perform is if that particular square has already been chosen by one of the players, otherwise the move would be illegal. So as an additional condition, check if the corresponding item in the board list is empty. This way, one cannot click on a square that has already been taken. Now I'll add a super innocent looking wait 0 seconds block. You may think that this block serves no purpose, but it's actually super important. Here's what this block really does. On the left and right are finished versions of this game. The only difference is that this left version has a wait 0 while the right version does not. Notice that when the X player wins the game, there's a lag before the move. The reason this fixes the lag is because the wait 0 seconds block forces the stage to refresh. If we don't use this, then the code after this will also have to run before updating the stage, and this is what causes the lag. Okay, getting back to our code, we need to check if any player has won after this. So create a block called checkWin, making sure to run without screen refresh. I'll get back to this shortly, so let's finish this script first. The checkWin block will just check if any player has won the game and update the win variable accordingly. In any case, after this implementation, we can update the turn of the player. If it's X, then we'll make it O, and if it's O, then we make it X. Great, we're almost done with the code. To check if a player has won, we will need to loop through the wins list, and for this, create a variable called C for all sprites. Initially, set C to 1, and then repeat 8 times, which is the length of the wins list. Well, now is the slightly tricky part. We have our wins list containing the squares of the win possibilities. For example, for item 1, 2, 3 in the wins list, we have to check whether items 1, 2 and 3 of the board list are occupied by the same person. So we check if item letter 1 of item C of wins of board is equal to turn. But this only considers the first letter. We also need to check if the second and the third letter squares are held by the same player. So we just need 2 AND blocks with the same block duplicated and the letter changed. Just make letters 1, 2 and 3 for the conditions. Okay, if this condition is true, then it means that the person who made their move has won the game. So set win to yes and then broadcast end game and wait. Since we want the search to extend to each item of the wins list and not just the first item, increment C at the end. Awesome, I'll finish things off with a simple end screen that visually represents who won the game. For this, draw a new sprite. I'll use the same colors as I did when drawing the squares to write a simple text message for X being the winner and for O being the winner. Just ensure that once you've drawn these two costumes, you can name them X and O. This is super important. Great, now head back to the code tab. I'll rename this sprite to be end screen. When the green flag is clicked, go to the bottom of the screen and then hide. I'll just test this location once to make sure it's alright. Yeah, this is pretty good. All that's left is to change the sprite's costume depending on who won the game and then show it. So when the endgame message is received, switch the costume to turn and show. And that is it. Test the program and you should be able to enjoy a complete tic-tac-toe game. This is the base game design and everything after this is up to you. You can use this to customize the board and create some crazy looking animations. With that said, thanks for watching. Make sure you leave a like if this helped you out, and until next time, peace out.